definitely. Okay.
And then February, we really wanted to start I believe that they had them in the past because we found pictures of a volunteer appreciation day, kind of before the start of our busy season. We kind of want to make like a volunteer of the year, to start recognizing the people who are really active in this park, in this community. The Racine Starving Artists Club, I had talked to the president of that, of the club, and they would be very, very interested in hosting an art show, and whereas their yearly collaborative event here, and it wouldn't be a ticketed event as like an art fair, more of just a way to get visitors here and to support people in the community. And she also had a number of artists that would be interested in having little like art lesson days here that would then be a ticketed event to the hall. And that would go percentage to the artists for the teaching, and then mostly to us as Lighthouse for hosting. Setting up the events to be auto released on Eventbrite and for Facebook events is also something we're going to do this year as well, so that it just gets released periodically. And if we need to make any edits, it's not like we have to backtrack and release a statement to fix something. Because our goal for event, if we're having events on a certain day, we want it to gross more money than it would be for a rental, which would be $850. So last year we hosted the car show, we went well above that by $200. So we feel like that's an achievable goal. But obviously if there's a rental, that would take priority over something that would be hosted like as a park event then. And then painting the village hall with the color selection, the professional service that would be might be needed is to be determined. And then the sunrise sunset planning, those were really successful last year. We sold out of all 8 of them that we planned. We did host them on Eventbrite. Tickets were charged at $17.50. So then they would person who purchased them would purchase it for a flat $20 to include the Eventbrite fee. March, so the Master Gardeners Club did reach out to us. Janine is stepping down, and the 2 volunteers that are taking her place are unsure of their availability to come out here and maintain the garden. So we're gonna talk to them and kind of see if we can support them, blend the Wind Point Garden Club and their efforts together. They both have concerns because they're elderly. They are all if they're going to be able to drive out here and things like that. So we're going to kind of hopefully make amends on that before planting season starts.
I just want to say something quickly, and people change in different groups, but I tried very hard to get Wind Point Garden Club and the Kenosha Racine Garden Master Gardeners together, and it didn't work. So, but leadership changes and other things change. I just wouldn't.
Well, the Master Gardeners went from a party of 3 to now a party of 2. So they're running out of choices.
And
this is the Racine?
The Master. So because last
a lot of people have. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The lady who came last year, I can't remember.
Janine.
And I and the DPW team again, we're all down at the lakefront planting in the spring. And Janine was the only person because the other members are too elderly. And it sounds to me like that's still the case.
Plus she was driving from Burlington too. That's a far drive.
That's where she's
right. They don't have as many people going through the program.
So it's just, I think the whole organization is
kind of falling.
Well, don't they have certain people that worked in certain areas? Like I know the Racine Zoo has a group from the Master Gardeners. We had a group. There's one downtown we're seeing.
Janine told us they only have 3 active volunteers, and then that do more than a monthly event. So, and none of them are interested in driving out here. The other 2 members also live in Kenosha and Burlington.
3 members in the entire thing.
Yes, active.
That's kind of what it sounds like.
Because I think they have a roster.
Right. I think I know 3 people that sit on a committee with me and another capacity.
Honestly, do you have?
I can. I need a scoop or at least some
Yeah.
more volunteers for you.
Yeah, and then we started working with the Riverbend Nature Center, and they are also experiencing a giant lull of volunteers as well, because all of their volunteers are also elderly and phased out. So this is kind of like, they were like, maybe we can work together and share a pool of volunteers, which would be great, you know, because they have a lot of naturalist volunteers that would be very helpful to kind of with the gardens and everything like that. And they, UW-Madison has a naturalist class that they also kind of publish as a volunteer list too. And I was gonna touch base with the teacher because that's a seminar I'm taking in the fall. So I'll see how that kind of goes with the UW-Madison team too.
The other thing that we had talked about, if there was a like land stewardship program through Prairie School.
Yeah,
We might be able to get some high school volunteers to come down.
we
and-
do have an idea about how to actually get students down here. We were wondering if it would be of interest to offer a teen volunteer program. And then from that pool of teens that we could offer a small scholarship for any kind of college expenses. And it would be from money that we would fundraise through our events, so it would be taking out of like
It'd be coming out of the budget.
the budget of the village. But then you could only apply for the scholarship if you were an active volunteer and met an hours criteria. Because that's what Riverbend was telling me that they did years ago, and they had a large surplus of students, and kind of COVID took it down, and then their grant money for the scholarship got taken away. So that kind of dissolved that program, but they said there was a larger interest in it.
Yeah.
So that was our idea of how to
Well,
get
they need
some
volunteer
friends down
hours.
here.
Yeah, every spring,
Yeah,
they're scrambling for hours.
well, I think I forgot it, right, it's in here in my plan somewhere to talk to them, I don't know.
That's okay.
For an Arbor Day kind of tree planting and a spring cleanup to talk to Prairie,
That's in April.
Olympia Brown, well, that's in the lights on the next list.
Yeah,
I'm
It's
kidding.
spring.
We had our,
Oh, our official Arbor
our
Day.
official Arbor Day. You
Yeah.
missed it already, Sam. No,
The
just-
National Arbor Day, not our Arbor Day. Anyway,
sorry, Ben.
I was there. And then so continuing on March, the Not Milwaukee reached out to discuss an advertising package for 2026 for the lighthouse. And I don't anticipate us being able to afford it right now because they are quite expensive, but she said she was they do some pro bono like credit work for places that are nonprofit. Or like parks and historical places. So she was gonna gather that information and get back to me, but that's happening in March. We had a coffee car reach out to us and ask about coming down here on busy weekends and Tower Days. So I was going to touch base with them. They had a contract with the Kenosha Farmers Market at the time. They're no longer doing that this year, so they were looking for a place to come. So I was gonna touch base with them in March to see if they're still interested in coming down here. And then bathroom updates for the outdoor bathrooms by painting and repainting like the storage bins. Cause they're getting a little dinged up. Well, and then so Q2 is really focused on kind of starting events and gathering our volunteers. April is when we want to do that volunteer appreciation day, having a volunteer of the year award for 2024. I obviously don't come to the climb day, so I don't really get to know a lot of volunteers, unfortunately. So it'd be nice to get to touch base with more people, other than when we're running around trying to set up a Tower Day. And then kind of discuss with them our goals for the year and starting a volunteer newsletter so they can see monthly what events are happening and they can come to what they're interested in. And then the spring cleanup and the Arbor Day tree planting, we were hoping to connect with Prairie, Olympia Brown,
Yeah, just some of the small.
to kind of see if they wanted to come and do, because all of those trees were taken down from disease, right? The tree line, so kind of starting to replace that as the lighthouse beautification project. and start moving on that, just so we can actually say, like, when we're doing the grants, that we can say that we've started, because a lot of grants also want to see effort made before they give you money. And we, in starting this year, are gonna start re-recording volunteer hours, so then when we are writing to grants, that we can say, hey, this is our volunteer pool, here's how many hours we have dedicated to us, here's what the keepers put in, things like that, so then we can actually apply that to grants then.
You also want to tell them who your volunteers are. And
Yeah.
hopefully there's some diversity.
Yeah.
And grantors love to have young people involved, getting them engaged in the environment and stewardship early is a big thing, so.
Yeah, we were gonna have the volunteers fill out like a small demographic sheet and then have that attached to their name in the log then, and then we're reviewing this information, it's all connected then. Once I figure out how to do that in Excel, I will let you know.
Just curious,
Yeah.
How many volunteers are you looking for from like the high school and the elementary school?
I think, so hopefully, I'm hoping from the elementary school, from what I understand, from when we had Trinity here, that, because they did the tree decorating, their icon of the year happened to be a lighthouse, so we really aligned with what they were teaching. And then in the spring, they said that they talk a lot about environmental sciences, so I'm hoping that we align with their curriculum so they can come as a trip down here again. And then from Prairie, I think we were hoping from even having just 5 regular volunteers would be beneficial. And I think that's a realistic number, just given like schedules and who can come.
Right, no,
Yeah.
I was just curious because I didn't know the number and I thought, well, you know, you've got 3 other high schools.
Yeah.
And every high school student has to have like 60 hours of volunteer
If we're seen.
to graduate. I don't know if it's 60 or 40, something like that, to graduate. And they all get it somehow.
Yeah.
So those are other, if you didn't get enough from,
Yeah.
you know.
I think we wanted to do Prairie first and kind of like make the program and decide what is beneficial to have them come and help with first before we are like, hey, hi, other schools, now we have 40 people here, we don't know what to do with them.
Right, no.
You know, and then if we were going to kind of move down to like the scholarship route, then have it be like a what did we call it, like the junior lighthouse keeper, and have it more be like an intern position then for them to be here, and then make it more like, hey, here's our regular volunteers, they have their bids on their hours first, and then kind of moving down. But we have to find out what we even like need them for, because we weren't here at the beginning of the season or planting season or anything like that. So like this year is gonna be a year of finding out for us of what needs to happen and where we need help. So
It's cleaning out the beds and weeding.
yeah, just general sprinkling
And
of
mulching.
stuff and mulching.
Mulching,
Well,
yeah.
and then that's a whole nother thing too. Yeah, they both garden clubs were under the impression that they cannot use mulch.
Yeah, Julie, that.
She spread last year.
Cause that was like.
No, she
did
didn't,
it.
because that's why all the plants were dying all the
Yeah.
time. Because they had nothing to, because they were in full sun.
Oh,
and
that was
they're-
our garden.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so,
Yeah, she wanted, because it leaches
well,
nutrients from the soil.
I support, she said that she was told no because it's too messy over there.
It's true.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
I can
messy.
see it.
Yeah.
Because the beds are raised, the pavers are very low. Every time it rains, it washes
gets
out into
everywhere.
the
Yeah.
sidewalk. And you're constantly replenishing them all the time. That whole entire paver section needs to be raised. It's so low. It's so low that those need to be all ripped out and
You
put
know,
back.
we have the same problem at my house. So what we have done is bought a piece of, it's plastic.
Like the trim piece,
Trim.
that was gonna be my solution.
And that's what we have done.
Yeah.
Actually, my husband's still working on putting it in. But yes, that's what we have done to raise it up, because it's the same thing, ours
So
is
the mulch
angled.
will stay in.
Yeah,
Yeah, most of it stays in.
try to.
Because I told them, it's like, we can't do this anymore, I'm tired of sweeping this stuff up off the sidewalk. And with the beds out there, they're a little bit different, ours is actually up at an angle,
Yeah,
whereas that's flatter. But yeah.
That's what I was
it's
gonna
cheap,
suggest
It's not
this year.
expensive, and it's like this high. It's
yeah,
high enough to hold it in, it's brown, blends. you
Yeah,
know.
I know what you're talking about, because that's what that's why I asked Janine if she'd be interested, and she just said she didn't need help installing it, so I'm
And I
like,
think-
sure, and then she's like, I'm not coming, so it just kind of turned into an issue.
I wanna say we got it in the yards, I could be wrong.
Oh, that'd be cool, yeah.
Yeah,
I think we got it in the yards.
and hopefully, maybe one day our irrigation system would be repaired,
I was gonna say.
hopefully.
Sure.
Okay, alright, good talk.
I had
Okay.
I had a suggestion.
But because that was like another issue last year of why she also had a difficulty was the watering, was bringing the hose all the way down to
Mhm.
water. She had a really hard time with that, and that was something that that's why she kind of stopped, because she ended up actually not feeling well for multiple days after she would do that. So, and it's a pain to drag it around, so I agree, you know,
What's wrong with the irrigation system?
It's
Got holes in it everywhere.
yeah.
We fired it up and it's got holes.
Replacing it?
Sure,
I mean, I don't know what it would cost to replace an irrigation system for that.
a lot.
How much
Yeah.
is a lot?
I don't know. It comes from the lighthouse right there on the side. That's where it's coming from. You got a brand new system that is programmable that you can use for it. It's just all the piping and wherever it goes, because I don't have any schematics on it, so I have no idea where it goes. And it supplies the bed behind the Foghorn building. It provides for all the dedicate all the memorial gardens, and then it goes over there too. So I don't know. And when we fired it up in spring, it was basically watering everything but the flowers. So
And if there's
we kind of
pipes,
gave
there's
up.
pipes
on
for it
that.
out front as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it takes on a lot, and
Yeah.
it all needs to be traced out. And when you start piecing in brand new with old, it's just you're chasing it. So you're almost
Could you
better
put
to
in
just
a
kind
new
of redo it.
system? Utilizing the mechanics that we have, just connect the old pipes and
Oh,
all
yeah,
of
yeah,
that, and start
absolutely,
over.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot had to
So-
do with the fact that it was never maintained in the back. So nobody blew it out.
Oh, gosh.
Nobody did anything with it to maintain it. So when it was shut off for the year, the water stayed in there and then it froze and it broke and burst. So we had a company come in and blow it out this year to try to minimize the damage. But from what I understand, it's the first time it was done in a long, long time. So I don't know how long they've been using it, but that programmable system you guys paid for is pretty expensive downstairs. So it's pretty nice.
Is that item on your wish list, or somebody's wish list?
It was on ours to take care of this year. It's just, we just
I
never,
wonder if that's something
we
that's
hooked
right
up the
for-
hose and it just kind of, that's how we watered it. Michelle did it for the most part.
I would say Michelle and I had discussed with the sprinkler
Oh,
system, was doing it just like a drip hose or like one of the
Right.
hoses that you can just bury into the mulch, and then you never really have to worry about it freezing. You just have to worry about the bigger pipes that are underneath. Hopefully bury them below the frost line so they don't freeze. But just having that all around, because super easy to maintain, don't have to worry about sprinkler heads, don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah.
The other suggestion that both Michelle and I had was to run water line from over here down over
You
there.
guys were talking about that. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to do that.
So that was like,
Hoping.
yeah, that was the other one, because it would be easier just to have a hose bib down there, and then you don't have to carry 100 feet of
Right,
hose on
right.
down there. You just hook up a hose and you can spray everything down there. If you need.
Yeah.
So I know as
Well, maybe we should at least get a quote on.
We can get a quote on it. It's gonna be a lot of money, but we can get a quote.
You can add
And
it
then
to the
we can
CIP
maybe-
wish list.
I'll add it to, apparently I'm adding it to the CIP wish list.
Fix
Yes.
our system. We haven't ever had any problems with it. They come out. And
Yeah, they're the ones that-
and they have a schematic.
Right.
And so I don't know who put that in, but if it was Gordon Dix, because they're just down the road, it's very possible. Maybe they'll have a schematic.
Would there be a record
They're
of
the
it in
ones-
finances of who did it, or?
I don't know, but they're the ones that blew it out, and the guy that does it's been doing it for years, he said, and he's never been down here, so.
How
He's
much
never
on about
approached
with
it.
milligers, because they seem
Could
to
be,
contract with milligers for everything.
could be, or it
Yeah,
could have
we have
been,
an account of builders.
could have been Joe.
I would
I don't know.
inquire.
Joe could have put it in too.
Well, hopefully.
I don't know.
I think
It's not that deep.
We might.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
really
so
tough.
It's only like 6 inches deep, so it's not
Oh,
that deep.
geez.
That's why-
That's not a professional install. I'm
That's
why-
sorry.
that's why we were
Yeah.
worried that so.
I would suggest we start over.
Yeah, I mean, but we have a whole plan that we have to talk about.
Right.
so
Right.
that would be
But I
great.
we put that in there.
Oh, that's good.
Go for it.
Sorry to sidetrack. But May is gonna be mostly replanting and cleaning up the gardens and everything like that, so it'll be a lot more prep. And start the active promotion on the Tower Climb days and the first car show of the season. We're hoping to have the weekend before Memorial Day. Talking to a couple of the lead car group guys, they are looking for a spot to have more frequent car shows at. And I think we've got an email a month just asking if we've decided on dates. So there's like definite interest. We grossed about $1,200 last year from the car show. So it was a decent,
For the
That's-
next time.
So
yeah, for the
the
first time.
is minimal,
and we got over 80 cars. So there was like, yeah, there was an interest in it. Mike brought down his car because he thought nobody was gonna show up. So we
Yeah.
put put his car in.
And
He's
it's
like, wow,
shocking.
people are here. I was like, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
People
thanks,
love car
buddy.
shows.
I was like, thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
And it's not really, it didn't seem like there was a lot of.
There
It was
was
absolutely
There's
very
little-
minimal prep. Yeah, it was, we got a lot of positive feedback. Oh my gosh, positive feedback on the food tent instead of having a food truck because it was very affordable for families.
Yeah,
And they made 100% profit on it.
yeah.
So and that was volunteer run as well.
And I don't think we do much better than that with the tower.
No.
climbs.
It's about the same.
About the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah, we
So-
offered
At least there's
tower
something.
climbs during the event and like I think we had like 15 people. It wasn't very,
Oh,
we
wow,
were
that's
here to be here, which
Yeah.
was nice, yeah. And then June is the first tower climb, hoping we can have some new volunteer training happening. Having the lighthouse souvenirs at the registration table already here, and then having a handout of our future events at the June one would be like our 3 little priorities, and hopefully we can keep the second and third bullet point at then continuing on to the other tower climbs, and then do the sunrise. These events are a lot of like just the repeat, so this would be like our event a week kind of idea where we have the tower climb, a sunrise tour, a sunset tour, and the art day, and like that would be our monthly basically to plan out, which is a lot of what is the next, because there is a ton of private tours also and bus tours, and then there's weddings here that have already been planned. So we are trying to say like, okay, well, what are very low effort, high impact events that we can do without interrupting any of the other shenanigans that happen here. And then part 3 is just really about maintaining and trying not to drown in scheduling.
Sunrise and sunset lines, what did you clear for those? Do you remember?
I can look at it, right? But we sold
We sold every
15
single
tickets.
Sold
Yeah.
out every time.
Yeah. And then even when it rained, people came because they really wanted to see
Yeah.
all different. It was cool, you know.
Okay.
I think there was a ton because Andrew did all.
I had a lot of repeats.
A lot of repeats, and then he just let people hang out for as long as they wanted because it wasn't as busy as a tower day, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of positive reviews about
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
And you charge the same as. for-
We charged $20 per person.
Right, and part of that's the event, right?
Yeah,
so it's like
it's-
17.
How much is it if I wanna come on a tower day?
Yeah, 12 something.
So it's like $5 more.
Yeah,
Okay, I was just curious, cause like,
Yeah.
you get a little extra.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
what we
Private, you
That's
get a
what-
little more time.
that was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think you make coffee every
Yeah, I
sunrise.
was gonna say every sunrise when I have coffee and then
You
they
do
go
run a little
yeah,
coffee
people bring
up
mugs
there.
and stuff, so. yeah, I'll bring her
That
coffee.
well, personalizes the experience, it's
Yeah.
just better.
Yeah, I know, we had a lot of repeats, so there were times that we started off as like a normal tour. And there was one time where everybody that was in here were all faces that I had.
They had all been before.
You guys want the whole like
cool.
watch the video too?
Yeah.
You guys just wanna go up to the top? I'm like,
Let's
"Ah,
talk
go
about
up to the top." All right, let's go.
I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
No, I just was wondering, how much money you make, because it doesn't, it's not a lot of effort, it's not a lot of cleanup.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
So
I
that's-
have absolutely no idea where my phone is right now, which otherwise I could have pulled it up, but it's somewhere. But then, we wanted to start doing like a kids' day at the lighthouse, kind of do a story of the lighthouse, have a little art project for them, talk about Lake Michigan and it's as a natural resource and everything like that, and have a little family day. Cause I think at that point in the summer, every parent is looking for something to take their child to, you know? And then having another art day hosted by a member of the Starving Artists Club, and then a second car show in July.
Is this Kids Day, you said, by that point, every mother's or parent is looking for someplace to go
Take
with?
their kid with,
Okay.
heavy on the with.
Heavy on the with, because-
That's how
With
Yeah.
their favorite adult accompaniment.
Okay.
So whether that be, cause we took
Okay.
our
No, I just want to make sure
nephew.
I understood correctly.
Oh, no, with.
Most are looking to.
Yeah.
Stop the
Yeah, but honestly, cause I took my nephew to some of the nature days, by Ware Nature Center. And they didn't, like, the kids just all, you gotta stand there. You know, they all just hang out,
Yeah.
you know, like,
All right.
and he, did not want anything to do, that wasn't cool anymore, but then August, kind of rolling into the tower climbs, doing a summer cleanup day, cause we did a lot of cleaning up in August, because at that point, there are tons of people here, the beach is trashed, and it's just really difficult to keep up with. And then we wanted to introduce like a little senior day, where the Lakeshore Sienna is down the way here, they're always looking for enrichment activities. What is it, St. Maria's is also
St.
St.
Monica's.
Monica's, thank you.
And then I would do the one on Douglas Avenue.
Yeah, Parkside or Parkview.
Yeah.
Parkview, yeah, yeah, so then they're always looking for places to bring their
I love that.
residents to, so I wanted to do that, cause I go to Lake Shore at Sienna all the time, and St. Monica's all the time for work, and they have events galore during the summer, so. And then September, tower climb, sunrise, sunset, final car show, and we wanted to do a scout day, a Girl Scout and a Boy Scout day at the lighthouse. With the Racine chapters, because there is a Racine chapter for Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts down here, so we wanted to connect with them to see if there'd be any interest.
There's a good badge, clean up the beach badge or.
Yeah.
Too.
Make a little lighthouse badge, I was like, that'd be, it would appease my Girl Scout heart, you know?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
This is one thing I see Kids Day
Uh-huh,
and Senior Citizens Day.
uh-huh.
Have you thought about a teen tower climb just for teenagers?
Teenagers scare me out.
I raised two of them, and they're not that bad.
Yeah, I would, I think I wanna see how these go first, and then if the age demographic specific tower climbs go well, then do another one next year, like, and add a teen one next year. But just having Prairie School here volunteering and everything, I would say that they could probably go up to the tower after their volunteer time if they wanted. Because honestly, that's how Andrew got people to clean the tower, for tower days, like, you can go up, you gotta bring a broom though, and people went up, and every time, so.
Yeah.
And then, until sort of like quarter four is all split up, but it's just kind of like the end of the year, the season repairs after everyone's been here. The final tower climbs in October, we wanted to do a fall art show, I know we talked about doing a fall festival at the community club. So I think it would be a good idea to combine the idea together instead of trying to host two separate events, because I don't want to. And that's just so much planning. And then I asked the park clubs if they wanted to do a trunk or treat, and they all immediately said yes. So if we wanted to do that this year, the Saturday before the Wind Point trick or treating, I think that would be of interest as well.
The one thing that's missing off of here, and it's because it's the community club that puts it on, is the egg hunt.
Oh, the egg hunt.
Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of that.
And lunch.
Well, you can't ask them too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It would either be in March or April.
It could
Okay.
be
It's on
April.
when it falls.
It's in
Easter
April.
is late this year.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's, yeah,
Yeah, it is,
the 20 something.
yeah, so it would probably be the 19th.
We do it the Saturday before Easter, is that it?
I think that's what we did last year.
November, the tree decorating was really popular. They both schools had really good things to say about it, and the kids were jazzed, and they voted Andrew as their favorite lighthouse keeper. And I was like, okay. So I was like, that's nice of you guys. I have the candy canes. So,
For the Easter hunt, I just want to let you know, Easter last year was on the 31st of March. And we actually did the Easter egg hunt the 23rd. So it was
the week before.
almost 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, just whenever, it'll be in April though, right? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, the Easter's the 20th. The 20th.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably should do it the Saturday before.
Well,
Yeah.
I will tell you, a lot of people go out of town over Easter.
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody
And
does.
it's gonna be
I
a
don't
nice
mean
time
the
of year
weekend
too.
of Easter Saturday, I mean
The Saturday before,
Saturday
yeah,
before.
the week before,
yeah.
yeah.
Like the 12th?
Yeah.
Because we'll talk about that at the next
Yes.
meeting.
Um,
So our one next meeting.
Okay.
You hope you go, right?
Me too.
Okay, you're coming with me.
There's
I
lots to
remember
discuss.
this. Yeah.
Yes, you look like, oh, you're all in one day, boom. But yeah, so that, we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Okay.
And then December is just the wreath lighting and then the village holiday party dinner here. That's it. That's all we have for our proposed events.
That's all.
Yeah.
Well, that's,
It's wonderful.
That's all.
Seriously.
Well, and then I'm hoping that we can, because I think since we started last year, we made around $8,000. I think our goal is a lot. What was our goal? I think it was 10, just to stay on the safe side and to anticipate maybe also needing to buy things for the events.
Yeah.
So as long as we gross 10, I think we'd be happy. That's nice.
Couple things that I just want to bring up. Using social media has kind of been very helpful for us this past year. We've had a lot of engagement on our Facebook. Things that I would like to look forward to this upcoming year is probably creating an Instagram account, just more social media, just engaging more people. People love taking photos here. I mean, even if you just look up hashtag lighthouse or wind point, like we pop up all the time. So
Yeah.
people are down here all the time this summer taking pictures and posting their pictures. Being able to be involved with them would be great. Possibly making a Twitter or X account, maybe an account. The National Park Services, they're pretty hilarious on their Twitter account, and I feel like we could throw some shade. We could throw some shade as a lighthouse.
All the
on some of those parks.
lighthouses talk smack to each other. I'm like,
So
oh my
I think it would be
God.
kind of fun. I think it would be cool engagement.
Andrew's
doing
website.
something like that. I am one of those witty people on social media sometimes. But just to talk about our Facebook account, engagement has drastically increased. It's sad, people want. But our best post was November 21st with 69,528 views.
What was that post?
That was taking a lovely picture of the lighthouse, the first snowfall.
Oh,
With what?
The first snowfall.
Oh, wow. 69,000?
69,000.
People love lighthouses.
Oh, they do.
People like-
we love ours because ours is the best.
Yes, so we are almost every day, we're getting comments on posts, comments on pictures. I try to post a picture a week, usually at least on there. Sunrise photo, this kind of beachfront.
One thing I
photo.
would suggest, and we're gonna have to move on pretty soon because we got.
Yeah, I know, we're-
But one thing I would suggest, and it's up to you and Samantha, is to take some pictures of the two of you doing something.
we will, during summer,
Because-
we'll probably bring up some.
Because so many lighthouse keepers, not that there's that many, but they're elderly.
Mhm.
And you guys are a young couple. I think people would be fascinated with it. And you're both good looking. I'm sorry, but it's part of it. I think you ought to do that.
Well, yeah, we'll probably.
I'll be happy to come down and take pictures.
Yeah.
Seriously.
We'll probably end up taking more pictures, probably doing some of the maintenance and stuff. Probably.
Every, at the picnic, I don't know how many older ladies who said, "Who's that young man, is that?" And I'm like, "That's our new lighthouse keeper." "Oh, we'd like to meet him." He's very big. Yeah. So,
And then
I know I'm lying, but I
No,
don't mean
no,
to
it's,
embarrass you.
no,
but
it's totally fine. Same,
it's just the
same
way it
here
is.
here's people at Chitag sometimes. She's like, I was like, hold on. But just a quick little year review. We made $8,253.75 since the end of July being here, which I feel like is a pretty good chunk of change for a little bit of months that we had been here.
Absolutely.
In all, with including the little bit of budget that I had at the end of December, we spent $6,051.94. Subtracting $5,247.51 that was in the budget, we only spent $804.51 in supplies and maintenance and stuff.
And how
Over
much did you
budget.
make? 8,000?
We made $8,252.75.
Wow.
And you asked about the sunrise sunset climbs.
Yeah.
Out of the 4 that we did, we made $1,124.10. So it's a quick, easy $300 basically that we get for those.
You are good to go. I'm putting all of those in the Eventbrite because I don't think there's any issue. I don't have any
Right
issues. I don't
now.
think you guys.
No, we just have to secure date for the picnic.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later.
But yeah, no, your Lighthouse account, go ahead and throw it on the Eventbrite. So, and everything else that you want to go.
You did an excellent job. Just thank you for your efforts and for your creative ideas. This is just wonderful to see this. Okay. Are you guys premature?
Yeah, we're.
All right.
Yeah.
So then we need an update on the RFP for the painting of the lighthouse.
So Eric is reviewing the RFP still, hoping to go out for bid here beginning of February. Would hopefully have a public bid opening with the Parks Committee of all the bids. I'm guessing it's not going to be much, but an FYI is probably going to affect events for the Lighthouse Tower. So we're going to have to work closely with the contractor and get see what the time frame will be on this. So otherwise, it should hopefully be out. Scott and I have been working on that. So and Eric. So hopefully soon. Oh, yeah.
So you think it'll go up to bid in February?
Yeah, sometime in February.
All right. Thank you. Okay, now we are at the point of the Wind Point Outdoor Recreation Plan. We're going to review the scope of the work, project timeline, and discuss. And I'll let, I think, is that our gentleman is here for the.
Yep, Jeff's here.
Okay, Jeff. Yeah, sorry, Jeff.
Gentleman's probably a stretch, but thank you.
So whenever you'd like to start.
How about now? Good afternoon.
Yeah.
So the purpose of the initial meeting is just as it implies, right? To kind of go over the process, make any changes as required or desired. If we can identify tentative date range for the initial meeting, which would be the community engagement session. And we'll work out, if we come out of here tonight saying, something like the second or third week of, that would be great. Because then I can look at my schedule, get that to Travis. Travis can disperse it to you as a committee and we can pick a winner. I sent an email, Travis, on Friday. Did you get it? And was that forwarded to the committee?
Yep.
Yeah, we've got our homework.
So, there's a little bit of homework there, a little bit more associated with the actual plan. And perhaps we can go through that, the second part first. I guess what I would request of the committee is to grab a highlighter and a red pen and go through the existing outdoor recreation plan. Everything in there that is a proposal, whether it be an objective or a goal or a recommended improvement, highlight the stuff that you like and you want to keep if it hasn't been done. Redline the things that you thought, well, maybe it was good 5 years ago, but not so much anymore. Because we certainly don't want to perpetuate something in the new plan that didn't work out well in the previous. On the other hand, if there are things in the previous plan that we just didn't get around to implementing, but we still want to be a front burner item or even a back burner item, Let's make sure it's in the plan itself. The first step of the process from my end is going to be twofold. One is to put together all the images necessary for the visual preference survey. That'll be the online survey instrument that we use for community feedback. It's the primary engagement tool in this process. The second thing will be collecting all the demographic data necessary to update that part of the outdoor recreation plan. So population, housing, economy, education, all that kind of stuff. So with that as an introduction, I guess my question for you is, what questions do you have about the process, about the final product, about the weather? It appears to be as windy there as it is here right now, looking at the window. And anything else you'd like to discuss? And then when you're ready, we can certainly go through those questions with Travis taking feverish notes.
I think my greatest concern about the whole plan and that kind of thing is being able to maintain it and sustain it. Because whatever we do has to be maintained, and we have to sustain whatever whatever we do. And that's always my biggest concern when it comes to any kind of new beds, new plans, changing paths, all of that. It costs a lot of money to initially get it rolled out, but then maintaining it and sustaining it is a whole nother part of that. So those are my biggest concerns with any new kinds of plans. And I don't know how the rest of the committee feels. But.
Well, they're absolutely valid. As a matter of fact, critical. You know, somebody can give you a really nice, really expensive toy, but then you're stuck with having to maintain that toy. So I completely get that. That should be one of the factors that we consider when looking at some of the options. I think what we'll find when we go through the visual preference survey is there are a bunch of shiny toys in it, right? And those who participate, those who complete the survey, are going to pick the shiniest and the prettiest and the ones everybody would love to have. But there are costs associated with that, right? There's securing the thing itself, then there's maintaining it over time. There's, replacing it when the time comes, all that. So absolutely, that's a factor. I would suggest it shouldn't be a determining factor at the open part of it, but certainly something before it goes into the plan. In other words, I guess I would recommend not ruling anything out based upon anything other than desired or not so much. And then those that make the desired list, then that'll be part of the conversation we have when we put together the first draft. So for instance, splash pad was on the top of that very brief list, and it was not in order priority. I was kind of just throwing stuff together that tend to be high up on the list of these things. Everybody wants a splash pad. The nice thing about splash pad,
Not everybody.
Not everybody.
well, okay, not everybody.
Maybe
many
I'm
people have
I'm
splash
like, no.
So the nice thing about splash pads is there's a wide range of costs and scale, right? At the low end, they can be $10,000, $15,000. At the high end, they can be, oh my God. On the low end, you can actually have modular splash pads. In other words, things that you take and put out someplace, and then you pack it up and put it away. They tend to have very, very low, well, I shouldn't say very low, generally low upfront costs and relatively low, if not very low maintenance costs. On the upper end of the continuum, obviously, those costs go up a bit. So I'm just using that as a object for discussion. I'm not recommending a splash pad or anything for the village. That's up to you.
One of our other concerns with anything we do like that would also be liability issues. I mean, we're talking splash pads normally are little children, and if something happens, you could be liable.
Right. So I'm not an attorney. I'm definitely not an expert in municipal liability. However, I've found over my career that tends not to be an issue. Most municipalities are protected so long as the thing, whatever that thing is, has been properly maintained. So for instance, if you have a great swing set, it's a modern swing set, it's been maintained, and kids keep doing silly things and get hurt, the village is not liable. On the other hand, if it's rusty, has jagged pieces of metal and et cetera, that would be something that would potentially be culpable on the village end. So somebody running across the splash pad who slips and falls and bangs their head, the village is almost certainly not going to be liable unless there's layers and layers of algae on the base of the splash pad that should have been addressed. So that aside, again, that would be something I'd recommend corporate counsel look at, and your insurer, obviously. But I found that not to generally be an issue. Obviously it's one of those currents like what if, but when you look into it, it tends to not be a big deal.
Well, that's good to know. I mean,
Falling off the lighthouse might be a bigger concern. I did say that tongue in cheek, by the way.
So we start by another survey of our constituents. Is that
So the short answer is yes, but it's a different survey than we've done that was done in the past. So the original one, the 2018 plan, I shouldn't say the original, but the 2018 outdoor recreation plan had a survey and had the community engagement session at the Johnson Foundation, wing spread adjacent, as I like to refer. I've maintained, I'm not sure if any of you were at that meeting. It remains in my 32-year career the single most impressive, most enjoyable, most auspicious location for a meeting. I would be happy to do that again, any opportunity it provides. Although the room that you're sitting in is also, as I mentioned to President McCullough, it's the best meeting room I've ever been in either.
Oh, Lord.
I think for that, wasn't there like 50 residents that showed up?
Actually, I can give you that exact number if you're curious.
I read this and I can't find what I was reading.
It was very well attended, and more importantly, man, was it engaging. I mean, it was just really, there was just a ton of participation. You've probably seen some of the pictures. I mean, once that wall graphic was completed, we did something called a nominal group exercise where everybody's 3 dots. And they walk up to that wall and they place it on the items that are most important to them. And I know I probably have 50 pictures from that meeting, and people are laughing and talking, and it's just fun.
Why would you not repeat that?
2 reasons. One is because of the word repeat. I don't believe that there's anything that would come from a second meeting that isn't there in the first. 3 reasons, actually. That's the first one. The second one is the cost, which is related to the first. So the cost of doing that is not insignificant. And I can't give you any legitimate benefit to it, given that we had one, it was 6-7 years ago.
But that's like 100 new residents since that time.
Absolutely true. Again, this is the proposal you have before you is just that. If you want to add stuff to it, be happy to. The third one, and this is a little bit more nuanced, and it's a little bit more municipality specific. I've done 5 outdoor recreation plans and a couple comprehensive plans since the start of COVID. And what I've noticed is in-person attendance for these meetings has dropped considerably, even in communities that I could lay down $100 bet that be at least 100 people there, and it's not happening. I don't know if that's still going on in 2025. I can say 2 weeks ago, I was welcomed into the COVID positive club for the first time in 5 years. So clearly it hasn't gone away. Fortunately, my sense of smell is coming back. So I think there's still a lingering reticence to get large groups of people in one room. I don't know if you believe that would apply in Wind Point or not. That's up to you. But the more important answer to your question is, if you believe it would be beneficial to do that again, let's do it. Again, you just probably saw the list. Let's see, where's my proposal? Sorry, I'm scrolling through a couple different documents while we're doing this. So yeah, on the bottom of page 1 of the proposal, community surveys, impact effort matrices, focus groups, all those things are options. What we did during that visioning session for the previous plan was called a SNOW exercise, strengths, needs, opportunities, and wants. It's fun. Unfortunately, again, I have many of the communities I typically work with subsequent to COVID have not been so energetic about that. Now you can do similar things online, but you just miss that kind of vibrant dynamic that happens when it's in person. Hope that wasn't too long-winded a response to a simple question.
No, not at all. I was just gonna mention, if we took the, kind of like the outcomes, the top outcomes of the wish list, so to speak, of what happened the first time and send it out to residents with a, you know, like rate these.
See if it's still of
See if
importance.
it's still similar.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Rather than have the big meeting and all of
Right.
that. Because we seem to have pretty good communication online with our residents. They do read the announcements and things of that nature. Not everyone, but then, you know, if you had 50 residents several years ago that's just a very small portion of the 1,500 or 1,600 we had at the time. So I think we get enough response and maybe even a little more in terms of what people continue to be interested in. That's something.
Very true, and certainly very possible. So if you look on pages 10 and 11 of the plan, that's where you'll find the results of that meeting. First, the community strengths on page 10, but then the visual preference, the nominal group component of it is on page 11. That's where you see, you know, wider, safer walking bike path, and the numbers and parents on the backside are what the number of people that placed a dot. The number of dots placed on that particular issue. So yes, we could actually do essentially a follow-up survey to that meeting, which would be an online survey, and ask people to rank things. One thing it's a little bit more difficult to do is to, wait, let me put it this way. If you have unlimited dots, you put dots everywhere. If you have 3 dots, you're very, very conscientious about where you place them. So back in 2018, what I said was, you know, you have 3 dots. If you feel there's one thing on this list that is the most important to you and you want to put those 3 dots there, by all means do so. You know, make sure you don't put them on top of each other. It kind of defeats the purpose, but yeah, put those there. Otherwise, if you want to do 1, 2, and 3, distribute it how you feel, good. It's a little bit more difficult to do that online. Now you can say of the list here, pick the 3 top ones, which is perfectly acceptable, but not quite as fun, I guess. Now, on the other hand, people do, we as humans do love lists and we do love ranking things. So anyways, the short answer is yes, we could create an online survey instrument utilizing the data from that meeting and do a refresh ranking. The visual preference survey, on the other hand, is similar to that, right? What a visual preference survey is there'll be about somewhere between 40 and 60 images, depending upon the images. And what we do is ask people to give a rating to each one of those images based upon a -2 to +2 scale. And then calculate, tabulate all the rankings of the images and have the combined results or the composite results for each. So what I found generally is trails tend to be at the top of the list, almost always. Water stuff tends to be very, very high on the list. Some communities you'll have performance, you know, movies in the park, Shakespeare in the park, you know, music in the park, very, very high up, and others they'd be lower. Depending upon the community, you have, you know, ATV use, which I suspect you're probably not going to have high demand for in Wind Point. So the visual preference survey, I would view as complementary to the surveys that were done in the current plan. And then if you want to refresh any of those surveys in the current plan, we can do that, and I'd be able to get an estimate to Travis probably by Wednesday. It wouldn't be scary expensive. I don't know what scary expensive would be, but it would be somewhere between 500 and 1,000 would be my guess.
I think it's interesting that on page 11, on the number of dots, the second thing that gets the second most number of dots is status quo.
Yep.
No change.
Notice the lighthouse is right at the top. I was not surprised at all from things that people have said to me personally and people that talk within the village. Had many people tell me we need bicycle and pedestrian lanes.
Right.
There it is.
Which I
Right there.
think that is part of the CIP plan, when roads are redone and that kind of thing, so people would be happy to see that. But, and the lighthouse and lakefront doesn't stress me at all. Most people would like to see a beach down at the lakefront and more ability to swim and enjoy that. The only other thing that I thought was interesting, the kayaking and canoeing. And I don't know if it's feasible, but down the line sometime, maybe the lighthouse would have rentals for kayaks or canoes, probably kayaks more than canoes.
If I can jump in on that, it's very interesting you mentioned that. So that was that was one of the things I talked about probably more than anything else during the first meetings. And the response from the committee at the time was, no, you can't paddle out there. The currents are too bad. The wind's too bad. It's too dangerous. I was like, I have paddled out there many times. I've paddled down your coast looking at that lighthouse at least a half a dozen times.
Yeah.
That was the concern and the potential liability. And again, one of the recommendations in the first draft of the current plan was ADA accessible access points, kayak launches, canoe launches, SUP launches and such, and then ADA accessibility to get from the lighthouse proper down to the shore. And I think there was interest, but it seemed like there were practical matters that kept it from becoming something.
Yeah.
Whether I agree with those is not important or not. It's up to you, not me. But yes, I would think, given your location, that lighthouse, anything that allows people to look at it from the water is something you'd want to take advantage of. Because for those of you who've done it, it looks pretty cool from land, but it is so much more impressive from the water.
I mean, just us being here, like, we go kayaking out there basically during summer out there all the time, and then now you have a bunch of surfers that come down here and hit the waves.
The surfers,
Oh,
they
God.
come down here all the time,
Especially
with their wetsuits and,
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
Wintertime, it's, the waves are
Oh,
big.
yeah. And they walk from halfway down Shoe Park all the way across the field.
So I guess what, as far as the refresh or reboot of the engagement session last time around, is that something you want to think about as a committee and decide later, or is that something you want to move forward with, or at least wait until I get a proposal out or a cost estimate?
We'll just do the survey.
Huh?
I think we can just do the survey.
Yeah, I would be willing, and you said it'd be between $500 and $1,000 for that?
I would suspect because it's online, not in person,
Yeah.
it would be more in the $500, $550, $600 range. If it, something, I take that back. It's going to be somewhere between $500 and $600, not $500,000. You don't have to decide now, though. We can start this process with the proposal in front of you, and if you decide to amend it, we just add more stuff to it, right? I'm not very rigid when it comes to this. I'm certainly not paternalistic. So it's your outdoor recreation plan. It's your process. At any time, if we want to stop, step back, add, or subtract, we do it.
Then, yeah, we'd like to see a proposal then, so we can move forward with that, because I feel like that's the best place for us to start. We need to know what our, we're like 3 people, several people that live in the village, but we need to know more about what people
What
want
they
at this point.
Well,
And I know that bike trails.
well, and not only that, but, our the makeup of our village
Yeah.
is changing.
Absolutely.
We're getting a lot more young families moving in.
But we have, ADA is going to be an issue. We
Oh,
have
it
a lot
definitely
of
is.
retired people.
Mhm.
When you look at our demographics,
Yeah, no,
50% in the retirement age. And so ADA is going to become something, we should have dealt with it sooner. I think we're trying to deal with it now with new facilities if we can. The problem is it's always going to be money. As you know, Jeff, it's always an issue in terms of money, but I don't think the ADA types of requirements to be able to get people who are in a wheelchair down to the lakefront should be, I think it should be done like ASAP, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think ADA accessibility is important inherently or intrinsically, right? But it's also important from a grant standpoint. So most
Yeah.
grants are hierarchical ranked, right? And really, when you submit a grant application, there's a mid-level bureaucrat in Madison or Chicago whose job it is to filter through that stack of 100 things on their desk and then pick the 2 or 3 that move on. So anything that separates your application from that other 99, those other 99 applications is good. However, it doesn't matter whether it's EPA, DNR, Nelson, it doesn't matter. There is a checklist that they use as they're reviewing a grant. And at the top or near the top is ADA compatibility. And it's not just ADA compatibility about what you're proposing or requesting. It's how ADA compatible, how barrier-free your entire system is. Can you get into this building if you're in a wheelchair? Can you get to that park if you're mobility challenged? And if the answer to that question is no in terms of the application, it does not move on. It goes into the file on the floor right next to them. So it is a critical element for the vast majority of grants. It's some changes obviously going on under the current administration that might change that a bit, but it has always been at the top of the list for, get a check in this box or don't even bother.
One thing that's hard about grants, especially I just had a conversation with our Smith on this, is that our average median household income is very, very high. And so there's a lot of like standoffish to that, and that they don't want to touch WinPoint because that's one of the biggest requirements, is that our average income is higher than the state of Wisconsin and the national one. So it denies our grant access right away. So just like one on Friday, I talked to Jason, our engineer for the road, and he said, yeah, you won't qualify for that one because you're just so high.
Even with the number of people.
That number
You
is,
think that a factor?
no, that number they see, they're like, you don't need it.
Oh, wow.
Exactly it. But then we are also being thrown off by people here the Johnsons and the Andersons, and I mean, they all live up over there. And they own companies, I mean, they have tremendous wealth, but most of the people who live in WinPoint are just working families. I would agree those incomes are still going to be higher than, the average, but if you take out the billionaires and the multimillionaires, it'd be a lot lower.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you look at the median income as opposed to the mean, that's really the key, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett moves into Appleton, and our income in the city.
Exactly.
One of the things to keep in mind, though, when it comes to grants is think of it as a pendulum, right? So the high, median, or mean income in the village is going to move the pendulum in one direction. But there are things you can do to move it back in the other direction. Any kind of partnerships with organizations that are not typically partners with municipalities. So school districts, senior citizen organizations, communities that are disenfranchised or disempowered in any way, Native American communities. I'm just rattling off, not saying that these apply in WinPoint. So when you put these applications together, again, you want to put something in there that makes that person doing that initial review look at it and goes, oh, hey, this is different. I didn't expect this. So there are ways to offset that, but it is undoubtedly a challenge, particularly when it comes to stuff that everybody's proposing to do. So everybody needs roads, right? It's the single biggest line item in your budget. And every municipality in the state, from the city of Milwaukee to the smallest, tiniest little town in Northwest Wisconsin, needs state funding for roads. So when that reviewer is looking at it and they look at something like WinPoint, they're like, nah, WinPoint, you can buy your own road. It's not the same for some of the other grants, particularly when you're proposing something different from what everybody else wants. So for instance, although not in WinPoint, everybody wants splash pads. And if you're submitting a grant application to put in a splash pad, it's not going to happen. If, however, you're proposing some sort of integrated park that has a splash pad or other water elements along with a wayfinding system, and it was designed by school children, it's ADA accessible, right? You just start building all this stuff up and you can create a palatable application that'll make somebody go, ooh, okay, this is interesting. So again, I wouldn't say it's likely, but it's also not out of the question. Unless you're going for road money.
Have we ever had a ADA study done? On the ground?
There have been improvements on the grounds based on ADA. I mean, the ramp that comes.
Right,
Yes,
right.
So I'm pretty sure that there has been,
Okay.
and the path that goes, the concrete path that goes down toward the lakefront. I mean, you get pretty close, but you can't get all the way down to the beach.
Right.
And part of that had to do with cost, but also the lakefront itself and the possibility, which happened after, as we recall, after all of the new plantings had been put in, and we were trying to shore up, make sure that the water was filtering properly and that it remained clean. And then we had the 2018 or whenever it was, and now I've forgotten, but we had that huge, the lake went up real high and it all washed away.
Right.
So everything that was done, and we had a grant for
Right. I remember
yeah.
that. I was just wondering, like our doorways, our bathrooms,
Oh, no, but this is a historical
Right.
place. So, but the bathrooms, I believe the bathrooms, public bathrooms would be
Public bathrooms,
considered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They have
ADA,
a wide enough door and a wide enough turnaround on the inside.
Okay.
because those were built, the ADA was
Right.
1992. No, 1992 was the ADA. So everything that was built after that had to be ADA
Okay.
compliant.
Okay.
So, but as far as a complete study of the village done, not to my knowledge. Obviously, we know that a lot of our, that's why we have the voting in the garage, because people can't get into the village hall. Anyway, so that has
Yeah, I
nothing
think
to do with this meeting.
exhaustive inventory of facilities is probably not required, but a plan for those facilities for the obvious or the more egregious issues is something that you'd want to have in place. So when you do go after a grant, you can say, oh, and we also know this, and then we're doing this, and we're doing that, and we have a time frame for it, and we budgeted and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like you have to have an itemized list saying these are all the things that are wrong and this is how we're going to fix them. It's just a general recognition that the Village of Wind Point is committed to that particular federal law. So in terms of the questions that I fired off on Friday, and I mean, we can discuss them tonight. You don't have to answer them unless you want to. Travis, the meeting's being recorded, I presume, so hopefully we'll have a record of these comments. Feel free to go down the list and let's see where we're targeting. This is going to help me, by the way, because the things that there may be things that you as a committee, well, clearly you as a committee know more about Wind Point than I do. And there are things that you're going to know see as need that I wouldn't even anticipate. So when I'm putting together the digital images for the visual preference survey, I want it to be more of what you would like to see, not less of what you'd like to see. So when it comes to the most pressing needs, we mentioned bicycle and pedestrian facilities already. Again, that's almost a verbatim assumption when you're doing an outdoor recreation plan. What else are there? Other than more money?
Are you talking about, I'm missing something here. Are we going with the first question, the most pressing outdoor recreational need? Is that what we're doing? Going through the
Yes, ma'am.
question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I wrote down that maintaining the lighthouse grounds and the lighthouse itself was my number one. We also would like to see greater use of lighthouse space, the grounds or whatever, which our new lighthouse keepers have been moving toward that, and how to the other thing is raising funds for maintaining the lighthouse and the grounds. That's one of the other things.
Can I jump in for a second? Has
Sure.
the village, or does the, has the village local businesses, including obviously the bigger ones, about supporting facilities?
The only local business we have is SC Johnson. We have the epidemiology center here. Did I say that right? And the Johnsons live here. Some of them, not all of them. And there has been some engagement with them recently, but it had to do with other things.
Yeah, again, I don't need the details. I'm just I'm curious if that is an untapped option or if it's not an option. And if it's not an option, then again, there are a variety of different kinds of fundraising efforts that a municipality can use for things like what we're talking about. So that'll certainly be part of the outdoor recreation plan. You know, all the usual suspects, right? Bake sales, buy a brick, whatever the case may be. Those will all be part of the plan. Excuse me one moment.
And the next question was, how relevant are the responses to?
I had something to add to number one.
Okay.
I think our parking situation is awful. And when it's used, it's awful. When there's nobody there, it's funny, obviously. But you know, you can hardly, if you get people double parking, you know, in the regular parking spot, and then they park along the street area, not street, they park
The driveway?
along, I guess that's the driveway, the driveway. I mean, I'm surprised there hasn't been an accident. Then there's people parking on James Street or Fairway, or it's just, I think we need a larger.
Wait, are you talking about here?
I'm talking
or the
about
Village Hall.
Village.
Both.
Green.
The village green,
And here.
Okay.
like for picnic. and
Yeah.
Jasmine
Yeah.
Park.
Yeah, I mean, if you go in the morning and you have children, you might as well forget about parking because there's no parking.
Yeah, you can have an amazing facility, but
Oh.
if the access is limited, whether it be parking or other reasons, so much for that amazing facility.
I think that's an issue we need to look at. So to me, that's a pressing outdoor recreation.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially it's, you know, when we talk about wanting to do more things over at the Village Green, you know, more people.
Yeah, and right now, we just make it work.
But you know, even with very quickly, even with the picnic, we had people that are like, could I just park in here? Could I just come in here?
Yeah.
You know, I can't walk that far, you know.
Yeah.
So we've quite a few of that.
Well, it's true,
Yeah.
and a person with a wheelchair would have a lot of difficulty
Right.
Participating. The
I
only,
just, yeah.
well, I mean, they could get up there and they could be under the, what do you call that, the
Right.
structure,
Yeah,
but they couldn't go out.
Back
to
to
the park.
accessibility again.
right. Okay.
I mean, I have communities, clients that have nature-based outdoor recreation facilities, right? Very passive walking trails, but there are no facilities. So basically you're saying if you're on the low end or the high end of the age continuum, you're not allowed to come here.
Yeah.
And my response is put a porta potty out, do something, at least let the people with young children or people who can't be a certain distance or a certain amount of time away from a facility know that they're welcome here. So I completely agree. If parking is a limiting factor, we'll look at options to address that limitation.
Also, are those garage bathrooms, are those ADA compliant? They don't look like.
No.
No, nothing in the
There we
village
go.
area is AD.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, there was a lady in a wheelchair at the picnic. And she was wanting to go into the bathroom and waiting for someone to come out. Well, anyway, obviously and when the door opened, I'd never seen those bathrooms, I'd never used them, quite lucky, but.
They gotta be
there's
60
no way.
inches of radius
Yeah, there's no.
per
yeah.
diameter and they're not.
And I believe they just took her home, which, well, whatever. Anyway, that's something we've just got to push forward on, but,
I think none of the parking spots are the ADA compliant either. There's no van, there's no handicap spot.
Yeah, we have one.
But it's not a
I don't
van,
know
like
if
it's to run off, like if you
Yeah.
need space for a
Oh,
ramp,
yeah.
it's
Right.
not, there's
It's,
Oh.
there are spaces, it's just not the way they should be.
Compliant, they're
And
not
where they should
compliant.
be, yeah.
Okay.
it's not-
So section 208 of ADA is the one that sets up minimum parking requirements for barriers.
Right.
And it is pretty strict. I mean, it has to be marked, laned, it has to meet the dimensions, and it has to have signage. Without it, it's not
We
ADA.
have signs.
Yeah, I think that. So they can get out. I don't think ours does.
Yep, it has to be one accessible space, and that accessible space has to be van accessible if there are between 1 and 25 conventional spaces, so. But again, it's not like you have to do all this stuff up front before you can do anything else. You just have to have a plan in place. So when you have existing facilities and the doors aren't wide enough, what you have is a plan for when that building is renovated or whatever the case may be, you're going to enlarge that door. That's the kind of stuff that you have to have in place. If it's on the CIP, that, for lack of a better phrase, codifies it, so you can use that in your application. We have a plan in our CIP to do this, this, and that. You know, ideally it's sincere, but
Are you reading my mind, Jeff?
I saw the body language there, and I made it.
Anybody else have anything they want to add?
So again, as far as this list goes, just to be clear, it's your prerogative. I'm in a comfortable chair in a good room and have a glass of water, so we can go all night. But you don't have to go through all the questions. I would say though, these are the questions that I would like feedback from you as a committee on before I start preparing the first draft. So presumably we're talking about March, maybe April, somewhere in that time frame, depending upon when we decide to have the engagement session. So that you can go ahead.
Well, all I was gonna say was, I had read the full proposal and gone through their questions. But I felt like I needed to do some research to answer some of these.
Me too.
And also meet probably as a committee after we've all, it's quite a plan. It's quite lengthy and there's a lot to digest. And some, I'm not sure. If everything has, some of the things that were in the original plan have been carried through. I know some of the ADA stuff for that right here at the lighthouse was, but I don't know about other facilities or the village green. So we need to do some research ourselves.
If I could jump in on that comment, that's critically important too. In the new plan, we want to highlight and list all the things that were accomplished from the previous plan. Because again, one of the criteria that grant reviewer is going to look at is how committed is this community to actually making this happen? Or is this just something to bring? Put a lot of pretty pictures and put a lot of pretty words in a document so they can get some money to do this, that, or the other. But when you roll out that plan and you say, you know, I'm sorry, when you roll out that application and you can show these 3 or 7 or 22 tasks from the 2018 plan were accomplished. This is how, this is when, this is the result. That is very, very important. It's one of those top 2, 3, 4. There's a community I was working with concurrent with WindPoint's plan that just went crazy on implementation. And I just finished up at the tail end of updating their plan. And when I first met with them and said, you know, basically, what have you done? Now keep in mind, totally different community. This isn't about one better, one worse, one bigger, one smaller. But I was a bit shocked at how much of a push they went towards implementation, which is gratifying, right? I mean, they put the effort into developing this comprehensive plan and then they implemented it. So I would say that community is at the high end of the ones I've done, probably 2 or 3 of the communities I've worked with, nothing happened at all, which is fine, but it makes me think I didn't write the right plan for them. I didn't help them well enough, so.
Yeah.
And then you can blame, me. If it's not implemented, you can blame it on the author.
And I think for most communities, it's gonna come down to money. I
Absolutely.
think that's just where it's gonna go. And if grants can be gotten, that's great, but, you know, I think that is always going to be the stopping point for a lot of communities that are struggling financially. And,
Well, when the time comes where WinPoint decides to pursue a grant, just track down somebody who can write that creative grant for you, right? Not someone who's gonna fill out the paper exactly as they want it to be and all that. Push the limits. If they say you can, attach 3 pages, make sure you fill out those 3 pages, DNR grants have a little bit more flexibility than WISDOT grants, for instance. DOT is just, it's a nightmare to work with. Scott could probably attest to that.
Absolutely.
The worst organization I've dealt with in 3 decades is Canadian National Railway. Absolutely the worst.
Scott's probably a close second.
And second, Scott. DNR, on the other hand, tends to be a little bit more flexible when you put grants together. You can include
Maybe
images.
not with us either.
Yeah.
I don't think they
Particular
like us.
communities, I think, but yes.
So again, perhaps for the next meeting of the committee, if each of you individually can go through this list of questions and go through the current plan again with the highlighter and the red pen, and then just get back as a committee and say, okay, what do we as a committee, how do we as a committee respond to these questions, respond to this request? And then whatever that response is, send it to me, and I'll use that to frame the initial draft. Again, this doesn't commit anybody to anything. It just gives me more information to hopefully have a more refined first draft than I'd have without that information.
so we'll do our research or due diligence, and each of us go through it, and then we'll reconvene before we present anything to you. We've got to agree on it as well, where we want to go and what we think needs to be done. It would be nice, though, to have the survey information. Personally, I think that would help us focus. I mean, we can do research on what has been done, grants that may have, I believe we did get some grants for the lighthouse in terms of some of the paths, and I know the information boards that we have at the lighthouse, weren't those grant? Do you remember, Charlie? Do you remember we got a grant for that? Or was that?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I don't think so.
I thought I saw something where Casey had to respond to them. I thought he said, I think that, I could have sworn it was.
Yeah.
Maybe it
well,
was something different,
Certainly
but I
on
could
the
have sworn
path,
it was.
14 grand
I thought it
on
was,
the path, but I don't recall
the information signs were not.
the exhibit.
Yeah.
The exhibit label.
Okay.
I don't know. You know,
Well,
I think it was definitely the
and
path.
stuff that
I left when they didn't vote it through committee, and I said, I have enough.
Do you have the original survey that went out? Still, anybody?
Probably. I mean, it might.
I wouldn't mind seeing that and then kind of tweaking maybe.
Oh, I think
So that was a conventional survey. That was a narrative survey. The survey that's proposed for this project is
yeah.
a image survey. Again, it
Right.
doesn't mean that you have to do that, but I would be very surprised if we were to do a similar survey and we wouldn't have essentially the same responses. It might be a very, it might be 82% instead of 88%, but I don't think you're going to see a situation, with a couple exceptions I can mention in a moment. I don't think you'd see significant changes. So the state of Wisconsin just released back in November the state outdoor recreation plan. The state has to do one as well. It has to be updated every 5 years. They were a little bit late getting this one out. But one of the things that the state, it's called the S-Corp, the State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. One of the things that S-Corp has that's important for communities that are preparing a new plan is the trends statewide and then the trends within specific regions. In this case, the Lower Lake Michigan region, which is the region Windpoint is in. And it'll say, you know, these are the things from all the surveys all the survey responses that we believe are of highest desirability and lowest desirability. And they compare them with the past. So, you know, for instance, you can look at inline skating, which 20 years ago would have been very high, and then it dropped back down, and now it's climbing up again, or fat tire bicycling. Snowmobiling, for instance, used to be way up high, and now it's very, very low for reasons that have nothing to do with snowmobiling. One of the things that has gone down is community centers, indoor aquatic centers, and that sort of thing. And that's absolutely because of COVID. That's the only reason that it would have dropped. So what we're seeing more is communities wanting campsites in their village, in their city, in their town. So you don't go someplace to go camping, you go to the park to camp out. I'm not suggesting this is something that should or shouldn't be in Windpoint, but that'll be part of the S-Corp portion of the project, of the plan. The visual preference survey itself, I'll probably start working on very, very soon. Again, putting together a list of images. I'll send it off to all of you. You can actually do it as a test. You can do the visual preference survey. Once you've done it, you can get back to me and say, you know something, probably not so much this use. We don't think that's something that'll work here, but how about that use, right? And I suspect that a combination of that and then potentially the revisit of the visioning session from 5 years ago or 6 years ago will probably give us all the information we need to make sure the plan's informed.
So I think what we're going to do then is do our research and come together as a committee and make some decisions about moving forward. And then we'll be able to answer the questions that you've given us, which I think are this kind of a way forward for us as a committee to follow your guidelines here. If we can answer these questions, then I think the plan just kind of comes together on its own. Tell you the truth.
I will also have the demographic data collected probably within the next week and a half. And as soon as I have that, I'll put together just a brief summary report and fire that up as well. So, you know, again, I'd be a little bit surprised if there were significant changes, but I think President McCullough, you mentioned earlier in the previous meeting that there had been, or maybe it was earlier in this part of this meeting, I should say, you mentioned that there's more families moving in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things that was discussed quite a bit in the previous plan or the current plan was the lack of young families moving in, which meant the lack of a need for the kinds of outdoor recreation facilities that young families would need or want. You know, if your population is on this end of the continuum, you're going to focus your outdoor recreation efforts on that stuff, whatever that stuff may be. So once you have that demographic data, I think that'll help you when you consider some of these options as well.
Absolutely. But I think that's also the village green was the new play equipment and all of that grew out of your first plan.
Right.
And so did the changes to the lighthouse and the lakefront down here. That grew out of that first plan. I'll tell you that.
Is there a dog run in the first plan?
There was
Or
discussion.
a dog park?
Yeah.
There was discussion. Dog parks are becoming a little bit more complicated than they were 5 years ago. And it has less to do with the dogs and more to do with people, as the problem is almost always people, right? It's never the end.
It never knows.
We won't, so we have City of Appleton has a very large, very nice dog park, and we won't go there anymore because of the people problem, not the dog problem. It's also a problem from a disease standpoint. So there's, again, I don't want to dissuade anybody from it. Please don't anybody in the room take this in any negative way. I tend to not care as much about people as I do about animals, particularly dogs. And, there are problems associated with dog parks. Now, a well-maintained, well self-regulated dog park is an amazing opportunity for everybody. It's that they're often not so well maintained and they're very seldomly well self-regulated. So, but the short answer is yes. If I remember correctly, dog parks were somewhere on that list.
Yeah.
Pull it up right now.
I remember hearing about it, but I never saw it.
Yeah, so the Wisconsin,
Where you work.
so the Wisconsin S Corp, the previous S Corp, visiting a dog park was one of the fastest growing projected uses in the future. And then 23%, which of the following activities do you or someone in your house most enjoy? Page 6, 23% said off-leash dog parks. If we could do one thing to improve parks, it was the last question. The fourth item was additional facilities, including ice skating, recreation for seniors, recreation for youth, off-leash dog parks, and splash pads. So yes, they were represented.
We have a splash pad, it's like right there.
11, there were 2 people that identified dog park as a need during the visioning session.
2.
Two.
Okay.
Which is more than 1.
Less than 3.
Focus on the positive.
Question, because I've kind of looked through this.
The other thing, Travis will make sure, if you don't have it already, Travis will make sure you you as individuals, by all means, please feel free to email me anytime with any questions, suggestions, comments. What I cannot do, what I will not do is act on one individual's comment, right? One of you calls and says, Jeff, we need more trees in the village of Wind Point, and someone else emails and says, Jeff, we need to cut down all the trees in Wind Point. I'm not King Solomon, don't put me in that position. So what I would need is the committee as a whole to provide the direction to me, whether it be through unanimous vote or arm wrestling or whatever. In terms of questions, comments, thoughts, those come at me whenever you want, whenever you need to. Email tends to work better. I can respond quicker and I can respond with a bit more nuance than I can just jabbering. So.
Can I ask a quick question?
You're the president. You can ask whatever you want.
On page 31, under general recommendations, it said developing 1 to 2 small parks in targeted areas. And so I looked on the maps and I've looked through it and I'm like, well, what are the targeted areas where they were talking about?
That's a new idea.
Excellent
This
question.
was the recommendations and improvements. This is the stuff that they, were recommending. But I was just curious where these little parks were, where they wanted them.
Oh,
That was the problem. Scratch that. Wrong word. The desire for targeted small neighborhood parks was there, but there was not agreement on the specific locations. So that committee decided that, once you adopt this outdoor recreation plan, it can be amended at any time. You can amend it a week later, a year later, whenever. You don't have to wait 5 years. It's not a static document. So it's more helpful to have them located previously, particularly if you're seeking grant funding. It's more problematic to locate them previously unless the spot of land that you're locating them on is owned by the village, right? So for instance, and please don't take this as a recommendation, it's just there's a certain property in the village that I've talked about more in the last 6 months than any property in any community I've ever worked with in 32 years. I won't mention what the address is, but I suspect some of you know. It's owned by the village. It has challenges for development, which means it would be a perfect location for a park. But financially, that probably doesn't make sense, or it may not make sense. Anyways, the point is when you have village owned.
Okay, I was just curious because it said 1 to 2 small parks in targeted areas. I was just curious what those targeted areas were. When you talk about it, makes complete
That
sense.
committee decided not to.
It's got a pond already.
But
It's splash pad.
that's all.
it's a splash pad. We have a built-in splash pad.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I skated in the winter.
We thought about the tennis courts first.
Okay,
It's interesting on that particular previously mentioned matter. I have 2 emails in my inbox right now from 2 different for that property. I haven't got to them yet.
Oh, you would do this. Oh, okay. I don't know what that is.
anyways, that's it.
Closed session.
If one of you can come up with Sherman and Peabody's Wayback Machine, I definitely have a recommendation for the village if we could go back in time.
What? What did he say?
Revisiting decisions of the past.
Anyways,
I love enigmatic comments.
yes, let's keep on.
Well, thank you, Jeff. We have some work to do and we'll be in touch and we'll probably use Travis as the conduit.
Yeah, that's ideal. I mean, Travis would be the funnel through which I communicate with you and vice versa, unless of course you call me directly or in a meeting.
Yeah.
So tentative dates, and again, you don't have to answer that right now, but if you could give me a 2 or 3 week window that you view as the most desirable for the engagement session. Ideally, you don't want it to occur in summer, right? You want it to be before school lets out, because then it's harder to get after school lets out to get attendance.
And how many weeks did you say? 2 to 3
Yeah,
window?
2 to 3 week window. That way I can give you multiple options for availability. And then the location as well. So if you anticipate 20, 25 people, the room that you're in right now might work. If you're expecting a larger turnout, then we'd want to know where that would be.
So I thought, I guess I'm a little confused. I thought that the survey was going to take the place of community engagement.
No, ma'am. The engagement session is
Okay.
the first formal step, but the survey, the visual preference survey will go out before that. So then we can present at the engagement session the results of the visual preference survey.
Okay, so we'd still do a student. Do you remember the last time? It was at Wingspread, you said.
Yeah,
Correct.
it was Wingspread adjacent. It was that annex that is not technically part of Wingspread, but whenever I talk to people, I always say Wingspread because it makes me sound better. Makes people oh, you were at a building next to Wingspread, just doesn't carry the same allure across the state of Wisconsin. Give me 1 second and I will let you know when that occurred.
We could do I have a meeting with them in 2 weeks anyway, so if we want to do wind spread again.
What's that?
If I have a meeting with them in 2 weeks, so we could do wind spread again, I can ask them if they'd be willing to host.
If you want to pick a date now, he can ask.
It was February 15th.
The last time it was done.
Travis, you know my vote.
If we,
That's a Saturday.
what do we,
I
Oh, yeah, and I should
No,
mention,
I'm saying last year it was February 15th.
Oh, I thought you were saying too, on February 15th.
no, last time it was February 15th. There are nights that work better and nights that work worse. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays are absolutely the best nights for community meetings, which is why I just.
Really? I don't know.
Yep.
I didn't write that down. That's interesting.
Monday is okay. Thursday's okay. Friday and Saturday and Sunday are essentially horrible. The only exception to that last part is if it's a big thing, like I don't know if you're familiar with a community design charrette where people get together and it's more of a workshop with lots of stations. Those things tend to work well on a Saturday. But if you have a meeting on a Friday night or a Saturday night, nobody's coming. At least not many people are coming. So Tuesday and Wednesdays, first choice. Monday would be second. Thursday would be fourth or third, depending upon perspective, I guess.
so.
And I would think anytime from beginning of March to the end of April would be a relatively viable option. Your next meeting will be in February, is that correct?
This is
March.
This is.
kind of our.
This is our February's meeting.
Okay, so if your next meeting
We
is,
also have a lot of people who are snowbirds.
Yep.
In the village, so I would push that to.
Yeah.
Really,
well, I mean, that's a good point. And if we were in 2018, that's critical, but with virtual meeting capabilities now, it's a little bit less of an issue because even someone who is wherever they are, Arizona, Florida,
Mike joins virtually. Kazola.
Oh, yeah.
and they'll be able to do that during the
Jesus. But you.
so
So if the committee next meets in March, then I would say probably late April to middle of May would be the best window. Others will work, but again, I'm just trying to avoid that approaching Memorial Day weekend and losing everybody for.
Right, but I agree with, my street is practically empty with snowbirds. And they don't do the, you know, they're older people, a lot of them don't do the, I don't want to link up to anything, you know, that kind of thing. So in person, I think that'll be the greater population that shows up to a community engagement thing. So I think
You know your community so much better than I do.
yeah. So, but you said like mid-May? That work for you?
Again, if the committee next meets in March,
Mhm.
and the result of that meeting is essentially all the information I need to be, not to write the plan, but to begin.
Right. Yes.
Visual preference survey, we'd want to go live no later than 2 weeks prior to the engagement session and end 10 days after it opens. So that would give me enough time to tabulate the results and have them in the presentation to present during the engagement session. So with that in mind, tail end of April to effectively the tail end of May, but not, you know, the weekend before Memorial Day weekend. That's as close as we want to get. Unless, of course, you want it to be a summer thing, which is great. I've actually never been in Wind Point in summer. I've never walked.
Beautiful.
I mean, not as my client. I've paddled and I've put my kayak up on the shore a couple times. But.
It's like the week
So
of May
what do you
12th.
think? Do you want to set the dates now or do you want to discuss this?
No, I think you should set the date. We should set the date now.
Sure.
I do too. I'm with you, Liz.
Yeah.
Well, and this is for the community engagement that we're gonna ask to do.
Right, then we
wing spread.
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we have, this is our general air at times,
Yeah.
and we need to confirm with wing spread that
Yeah.
they will do it then, if they have the time.
Well, I was gonna
or
say,
the availability.
if we pick a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
May area,
Let's say May 12th and what's,
yeah, that week and the 19th.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Okay,
so we can,
I better find out my son's graduation. Oh, but we're doing this on a Tuesday, right?
Tuesday or Wednesday?
Yeah, Tuesday. Okay, that works for me.
Again, ideally.
Ideally, otherwise Mondays.
well, I actually think it's gonna
No.
be better for wing spread too, because they have a lot of things on the weekends. So this may be to our advantage. So the week of May 12th or May 19th. Wing spread. So it would either be, if we're gonna do a Tuesday or Wednesday, it'd be the May 13th, 14th, or May 20th and 21st.
So just to, regrettably, Wind Point is not my only client. And many of my other clients have fixed meeting dates. So those would be, so again, if you could provide a 3-week window or even a 4-week window, what I'll do is I'll give you every single night I'm available through that time. And then you can pick the ones that work best for you. And if Johnson's involved, work best for wing spread.
So what works for you in May
Before-
then?
Oh, but don't you think, can you check those 4 days?
Yeah.
That she just gave you?
Yeah. So then we
And
know.
then you can go and then.
So I'm sorry, it was May what and what and what?
It would be Tuesday, May 13th, or Wednesday, May 14th.
The 13th is available, the 14th is not.
Okay, and then the next week would be Tuesday, the May 20th, or Wednesday, May 21st.
The 20th is not available, the 21st is.
Okay, so we've got that, Jeff.
Can I get one more, maybe the week of that 5th?
Also available on the 19th for a Monday.
How about the 6th or 7th?
Okay.
No on the 6th and no on the 7th.
Okay.
The 19th then?
Why don't I do this? I'll start reading them off, all right? So I am available on the 13th, 15th, 19th, 21st, 22nd, and 26th is Memorial Day.
I think those 4 dates that you gave us, we can work with those.
Yeah.
I will hold. Just, I wish I'd take notes. Travis, you wrote down those dates, right?
Yeah.
Could you read them back to me? I will hold all those dates.
May 13th, 15th, 21st, and 22nd.
And 19.
I will hold them if someone else requests one of them and gives me a lot of money, I'll probably take it. But more
Okay.
likely than not, I'll hold them until you get back.
How's everybody's schedule here? Did you look at those dates?
I don't bid for May till April, so, but I can bid those days.
What about you, Travis?
That's fine.
Okay, okay, so,
That's a long ways to plan, so. Yeah.
I'll be back in town.
You wouldn't be,
What you gonna do?
yeah, she can definitely, be that
well,
citizen, but
yeah, I will help if I can, but are you taking over the, or do we know?
we don't know.
In theory. Supposedly, maybe.
Okay, well, then it'd be important that.
You check your schedule too.
Yeah.
We're early enough. This is more important than less important. So,
Okay, that's why I was trying to do this now, because he's sitting here and we got everybody in the room. And yeah, I'm not gonna be part of the board then, so. But I will help to get research done and that kind of stuff. We've got to do that kind of thing. Okay, so should we just pick a date then, the 13th?
Well, we will check with Wingspread first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's see what Green
Oh, okay.
says first.
So-
And then, yeah, well, I'll
Right
circle
now,
back.
I'm available anyway.
Okay, do you want me to check or you?
I have a meeting with them in like 2 weeks, so I'll
Oh,
ask
okay.
them, because the league wants to hold their Wisconsin chief executives meeting in Wind Point at the
So then
Wingspread.
you'll
So.
check dates.
Yeah.
first. Okay,
Travis, you're gonna ask them to donate that piece of property that we discussed so we can put park.
Yeah, that other one too, that nice one.
okay, so I'm just gonna put that Travis is gonna check with her.
That'll be the aquatic park.
Yeah.
Those only cost about, $26, $27.
Okay,
Yeah, we had a new one of those in Racine.
okay, we have a way forward. Jeff, we will be in touch with you and thank you.
Thank
If we
you.
have questions, we'll engage through Travis. Okay,
You may engage directly with me if you like. I
okay.
would
Thank you.
talk to Travis far too often anyway.
Won't bombard you, but anyway, thank you very much, and thanks.
My
for your
pleasure.
attention,
Enjoy your
and
evening, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. We pay him by the hour, correct?
Yes.
So I would suggest any correspondence we go through Travis and not everybody's calling Jeff.
That's what I.
Okay.
Can I ask you just a quick question? Because I'm confused. So is this required by the state? Are we doing this to try to get grants to get money to do this stuff? Or is this the vision of the board that wants to go in that direction? To do
Committee.
It'd be all three.
I think it's a committee, not the board, because
Oh,
it hasn't come
yeah,
to
yeah.
board yet.
But is that what it is? I'm unclear as to what this whole purpose is.
It's just like any plan. In order to look down the line at the future in terms of what is appropriate for the village and what the constituents want, we need to have, the original plan was done because there hadn't been any overall recreation plan of any kind. But in order to get grant money from the state, we would have to have a plan in place. And after so many years, we're coming up on the deadline for this. That's why we wanted to be proactive and move forward with an amended plan. It's not going to vary that much. I think
Just gonna be updated.
It would be updated and maybe the priorities, the ADA priorities would be focused on more significantly than they were in the past. However, there has been upgrades for ADA in both parks. There were upgrades for children because they talked about playgrounds and those kinds of things. My only concern is if whatever we decide, if we move forward with it, it has to be maintained and sustained. And that's where we may have some issues because that always takes money. And it's more money than we realize sometimes. You know, putting it in is one thing, but caring for it and who's going to do it. You guys are already at DPW kind of over your heads with projects and things. And you've got the whole CIP plan for the village coming down the road. So something we need to take into consideration, like when would some of this be implemented? That's all I'm saying. But we need to do something if we're going to get any grants at all. We have to have some kind of plan.
Okay, so that's a requirement, like you were saying.
Like Jeff said, as long as you have it on writing, that this is something you're wanting to do now.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good idea.
And I
to
think
have a
once
plan
we-
in
yeah.
place.
Right.
So board members change and things rotate, but
Right.
at least you got something in place
Yeah.
that has a direction of where you want to go that people can utilize. So I think it's a good thing. I guess I was just unclear as, because I have a lot of concerns like you have.
Yes.
So as far as, I mean, splash pads and everything, I mean, I know that's not the direction we're going, but I mean, I talked to Oak Creek and they got this spectacular town of Drexel thing going on where they got that big thing where they host farmers markets and the food trucks and the splash pads. And I talked to their superintendent and he hates it. Everything about it, because he said it drains his budget. He doesn't have enough manpower to take care of it. The expectation is it needs to look the best in the city. And he goes, it's impossible.
There's only
It's
one
impossible.
municipality in the state of Wisconsin that makes a profit or breaks even on their aquatic center, the city of Hartford. The only one that could make break even or make just a slight time over, otherwise it never breaks the budget. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, their money pits.
Yeah, it just, I mean, all the story, I'm, so that's why I was just curious, like, you know, I'm sure people would, if you ask people, like, what are the, I'm thinking the first thing is gonna be pickleball courts.
Another
They're gonna
one.
want 20 of them out there.
No, they do
20.
want another one, but you know,
So I'm thinking that's what they want.
instead we compromise, right? And
Yeah,
make
yeah,
the
but
lines
I'm just
fit.
saying, I think that's gonna be a huge one. And
Right.
they're gonna need to be redone soon, so
Yeah.
there's cracks everywhere in there. They're not gonna get better, so I'm just,
A splash pad was
It just
very,
takes a lot of
very
money.
low on the priority.
no, I'm just
I was
using it
gonna
as an
say,
example.
no,
right?
it's not even in here, it's not on the radar on recommendations or anything like that.
But
Yeah.
that is the trend, and you see
Right, I
everywhere
get that.
now.
Yeah.
But that's for communities that have more children. And though we are a community that's changing some, there are more retired people here than any other.
Right.
And they
And,
want
and
pads to walk.
actually, if you think about it, the Wood Meadows area is the one that's attracting the families more. Even our condominiums are now have families, but we have a pool, you know, there's the splash pad.
And is there a kiddie end to the pool? I mean, there's gotta be a little shower in for the children. No?
Oh, there's no ADA, there's no getting down there if you're in a wheelchair, there's no going to the bath, there's no going to the bathroom if you're in a wheelchair.
Oh
I just started.
Yeah, well, a whole study, we just did a whole study, so, yeah. we'll be-
You're in the same boat over there too.
What?
I said you're in the same boat over there too.
That's why I asked about the study, because we just had one free, and I thought, oh, I can get a free study. So let's go. Okay.
Well, we have to excuse everyone except the committee and Travis. We're going into closed session.
You need a motion to go in?
Um,
Yes.
Yes.
well, we have to have people leave